Hey everybody, welcome to SLO City Church at Home. We're really excited for week 2 of walking through the story of Joseph in our Don't Give Up series. Got a few announcements for you. Number one is this: Easter is coming. We get the chance to celebrate the resurrection and the hope found in Jesus on April 4th, 10:30 a.m. at the parking lot at 1150 Laurel Lane. There is room and space for everyone. Invite a friend. If you feel more comfortable worshiping with us online, as always, you can find it right here at slowcity.church/at-home. We just encourage you to share that with a coworker, a friend, a neighbor, because we believe there's hope for everyone. Baptism Sunday is Easter Sunday, and if baptism is something on your heart, something that you want to step into, we'd love to walk with you through baptism. So you can go to the website, slowcity.church, click on the baptism link, fill out that form. If you have questions, if you want to make that decision, we'd love to walk with you, and we're excited to celebrate new life on Easter Sunday. Coming up in April 18th, is Start Here Lunch. If you've been new to SLO City, either online or in person, Start Here Lunch is for you. It's free lunch. It's a chance to hear about the mission, vision, strategies of SLO City, how you can be a part of the community and get to know staff and learn some of the SLO City story. As always, we are a church that believes in really living generously in our city and making a difference in our city. Your generosity makes a difference. So if you'd like to set up recurring giving or give a one-time gift, you can do so at slowcity.church/give or through the online mobile SLO City app. Your generosity goes a long way. Our collective generosity helps us accomplish all that God has for us inside the walls of the church and outside the walls in our community. We're really excited that you're here with us today. Let's worship.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. Leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so kind. Couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. He's 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to SLO City Church at Home. My name is Brent and I'm humbled to be one of the pastors here. Hey, I want to tell you this really quick. I love this about SLO City Church. I love the generosity of our church. I love that before SLO City existed as an entity with a launch date on September 8th, 2019, before the church officially started, there was this idea of generosity and compassion and living the way of Jesus and bringing real tangible hope to real people in need. I don't know if you know this, but before SLO City started, we started this thing called One for One, which was this idea that one group of people, one church would meet one need. And these one-for-ones that we've been able to be a part of together are based off of your submissions. It's through the website, slocity.church/give. You can submit nominations. And I just love seeing that our church cares for broken, hurting people, down and out people who have found themselves in unexpected situations. This week, I received an email from a friend and a person who attends SLO City Church with a one-for-one that I'm excited to share with you. I'm just going to read this email to you. It's about a woman named Amy. Amy is a single mom of a 2-year-old boy who made a living as a nanny, and she watched kids on her farm. It was her dream to connect kids with animals in an outdoor learning environment, and she was experiencing this dream, and her life was this dream come true. But my friend writes, her dream was quickly derailed when her boyfriend, with whom she and her son lived, became verbally abusive. It wasn't safe to be with him, wasn't safe to live there, so she moved herself, her son, her animals off of the property to attempt a life on her own. But again, life had different plans. After months of intense stress due to having zero income, trying to care for her son, and just make it and survive, Amy's body was a wreck, was tired. For a long time, she tried to ignore her symptoms until the pain was too much to bear, pain was too much to ignore. After numerous tests, a large cancerous tumor was discovered in her colon. She recently had surgery to have this baseball-sized tumor removed, But unfortunately, doctors found that it had spread to her lymph nodes, and she'll need to start chemotherapy soon. Amy is now currently trying to recuperate from the surgery, prepare for chemo, be present as a mom, pay her bills, and make it with zero resources. She's had no choice but to move into a trailer on her ex's property with her son until she's well enough to find a place on her own. Her family lives out of state, can only offer minimal help, and she's really up against it. Here we have an instance of somebody in our community without family, in a fight for her life, in a fight, with the reality of a difficulty when her dream was dashed. And so I just want to encourage you, SLO City, let's be a family to Amy. If you'd like to give to help her, you can do so at SLO City Church, slocity.church/give, or on the specifically through the online mobile app. There's a drop-down tab where you can give to the One for One initiative. But your generosity will help Amy and other needs in our city. I share that up front because it's a real opportunity for us to really wrestle with some of life's difficulties and to really meet a real desperate need. You and I have that ability. When other people's dreams are dashed, we can come alongside them, and we can just offer this encouragement. Don't give up. Last week we started a series called Don't Give Up, journeying through the difficult life of Joseph. If you remember, Joseph had a dream derailed when he found himself suddenly betrayed, backstabbed, put in a pit, sold as a piece of property, a slave. Joseph has had this string of unfortunate events unfold in his life. Have you ever been there? Derailed, in a pit, sold, stabbed in the back, felt stuck, felt like your feet were planted in the mud. Have you ever been taken advantage of? This was the story of Joseph. And we met Joseph when he was 17 years old. And we'll pick up Joseph's story in the book of Genesis, first book of the Bible, chapter 39. And we pick up this story when Joseph has been sold as a slave and then bought by a man named Potiphar. Now, Potiphar is the head of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, Pharaoh's security detail. Potiphar is the head of Pharaoh's security detail, and he has now bought Joseph, a favored son of Jacob, favored son of Israel, hated brother of 12 other brothers, put in a pit. Joseph is now a slave in Potiphar's house. And we see in Genesis chapter 39, verse 2, that the Lord was with Joseph. Let's read this together really quick, and then we're just going to jump in, make some observations. It says, "The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field." So we see Joseph thrown in a pit, sold as a piece of property, and now landing in Potiphar's house as a slave. And we see that the Lord was with Joseph. I read a staggering stat this week that 93% of all communication, that all interaction with other people is nonverbal in nature. Think about that. The way that you and I interact with one another, 93% of our interaction, our reading one another is nonverbal. The way we interact with one another and are perceived by others is rooted in our body language, in our facial expressions, in our tone of voice. And what others notice about us is not so much about what we say, although words really do matter. They are important, but how we behave and the posture that we take. See, Joseph is sold into slavery, lives in Potiphar's house, and day in and day out, Potiphar starts to notice, this slave master starts to notice a posture in Joseph. starts to see that there's something different about this one particular slave who he had purchased. Starts to see that even in light of all the pain that he's gone through, all the loss he's experienced, still, in light of all of that, there's this presence about him, this posture about him, this presence with him. People around him seem to be better. He does good and honest work. He works hard and brings honor and blessing to everyone around him. And did you notice verse 3? Verse 3 says, when his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did. The people around Joseph saw that God was present with him. The people around Joseph experienced blessing by what he said and how he lived. He had this posture of God's presence. Joseph did. That made things better. Real quick, I don't know about you as we read this story, but this makes me ask myself, what about me? When I'm around others, what do people see in me? What do they feel is present in me and with me? Is it impatience? Is it competitiveness? Is it busyness? Do I have this presence that says like, it's all about me? Am I hurried? Am I rushed? Do I have this anger or frustration present? Am I present or am I somewhere else? Do I bulldoze others or make things better? Is peace present with me? Is blessing, is trustworthiness, do I carry with me this presence of belief in others? What about you? What's present in your life? What's your posture? What would the people around you, in your house, in your workplace, in your dorm room, say was present in you and with you? See, Joseph was a guy that had this posture of God's presence. Do you know somebody like that? I remember this guy named Corky. That's actually his name. Corky Klingenfuss, like most famous name ever. But Corky Klingenfuss just walked with this posture of God's presence. Every day, every week, he would go to the local prison and he would meet with prisoners. He would sit with them. He would listen to them. He would be present with them. He would write down prayer requests. He would pray with them. He would bring them gifts. He would encourage them with God's grace and God's truth and God's love. And I just saw this thing in Corky Klingenfuss of God's presence. Do you know somebody like that? Do you recognize that in other people? Joseph was that guy, had that posture of God's presence, and people noticed. Now, this wasn't like on the first day of being a slave, of being a servant in Potiphar's house, people started to notice. This was a day after day, year after year, kind of noticing. See, Joseph will inevitably be a slave in Potiphar's house for 10 to 11 years. Joseph had this work ethic, this devotion, this trustworthiness, even when he didn't feel it, even when he was in the middle of experiencing the pain and loss of losing family and losing security and losing stability and all of these things, Joseph didn't give up. He didn't give in or walk away from being that kind of man, that kind of person that God was with. And people noticed, and specifically, did you notice this in the text? Potiphar noticed. Potiphar sees this, and because of the posture, the body language, the presence of Joseph and the presence with Joseph, what does he do? He gives Joseph a promotion. He like improves Joseph's position in the household to where he becomes an attendant to Potiphar. See, this slave, this favored son who was sold into slavery, came in at the bottom of the ranks, now becomes an attendant to Potiphar and has this high position. Potiphar puts Joseph in charge of the entire house. And people are seeing like, man, there's something about this guy that's different. There's this posture of God's presence. Do you have that? Do you know that? Do you see that in other people? See, Joseph experiences this. He starts leading. He starts running some things. He has some of this power, and then he. So it's not as comfortable as the father's house, as being back home with his father, but he's starting to enjoy some of these privileges of having some authority, of being Potiphar's kind of right-hand servant, like over all of the household. People are coming to him for advice. And then as he kind of feels this breath of like, okay, I'm good, suddenly there's this unexpected pressure that he starts to feel. This unexpected pressure that he starts to experience. Now, the truth is, no matter who you are, no matter where you've been, no matter what your title is, no matter what pain or life experience you've walked through, everyone in life experiences pressure. Have you? See, in every pit, in every pain, in every position, in every place of life, there's pressure. Have you dealt with pressure? The pressure of a diagnosis, the pressure that you experience in a setback, in a job loss, the pressure of an upcoming project, the pressure that you deal with when you just want to be perfect, or you're a leader, or you're a mom, or you're a single mom, or you're experiencing the pressure of relational drama, or finals week, or the pressure or this pressure to be wooed away and enticed by a desire. See, we all experience pressure at different levels, in every place, in every pit, in every pain, in every position. And the truth is, how you and I deal with pressure matters and will determine your legacy. I'm going to say that again. How you and I deal with pressure matters and will determine your legacy. See, Joseph finds himself in a position, and he has always been in pressure, and he's expecting this like pressure release valve to hit when he hits this place of security, a little bit of power, a little bit of position, but he finds himself with an unexpected pressure, with an unexpected test, and how he deals with it will determine his legacy. Let's read on. Verse 6. So Potiphar leaves everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he didn't concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome. And after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." Joseph is well built and handsome, and he has this new promotion, this title. His name is on the wall. He has the desk with the corner office. People are listening to him, and then this unexpected pressure. He runs into a crisis that is super unique. He runs into a new kind of adversity. The master's wife wants to sleep with him and says, come lie with me. Come away with me. Come to bed with me. And we're going to see in this pressure that his character will be tested and ultimately revealed. We're going to see something about Joseph's character. Now, character is defined like this: the group of qualities that make up a person. Character is the group of qualities that make up a person. Character is the thing, the guts, the foundation that makes a person who you are, who they are. And you and I get this, don't we? Nothing reveals character like a crisis. Nothing reveals character like a crisis. Nothing reveals like the core, the foundation, the guts of who you are like the crisis, like pressure, like trouble. I have a friend who says all the time, no pressure, no diamond. No pressure, no diamond. The diamond is exposed under pressure. Pressure exposes and reveals what's beneath the surface, what's really there. You and I have experienced this year. And pressure especially exposes our character, who we are. And then when you throw power and privilege into the mix, it's dangerous. I remember Abraham Lincoln said that, I don't remember, I wasn't there, but Abraham Lincoln said this phrase. He said, "If you want to test a man's character, give him power." If you want to test a man's character, give him power. We've seen a lot of people in power be exposed, their character be exposed, who they are is exposed when they experience pressure and have power. Power is exposing. Crisis exposes our character. And Joseph has suddenly found himself in a position, and now he's experienced this pressure, this temptation. The boss's wife wants him to take Potiphar's bed. The boss's wife says, "Come to bed with me, lay with me in Potiphar's place." And how Joseph handles this moment will reveal who he is and will ultimately determine who he becomes. his legacy, his destiny, like whether he'll continue to pursue the dreams God has given him. Have you ever found yourself under pressure, faced with a decision? Maybe for you, it's been a sexual temptation, a sexual desire. You've been under intense pressure to give in. Maybe it's a social pressure to give up or give in. Maybe it's a feeling or a desire or this like pull to do something that may satisfy you for a moment, or maybe improve your status if you just did this, or something that you want to give yourself to that just might take the edge off. And when this pressure comes, it's important. Hear me. When that pressure comes, it's important to take a step back and maybe even have a predetermined decision, a predetermined understanding of who am I? What makes me who I am? What got me in this place? What do I ultimately trust? What decision should I make? Because the decisions that we make under pressure reveal our character, and they reveal Joseph's character. See, Joseph has Potiphar's wife coming on strong. Like she is putting the heat on thick on Joseph, and she says, come to bed with me. And look at his response. In verse 8, it says, but he refused. But Joseph refused. He says, with me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he's entrusted to my care. No one is greater in the house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And though she spoke to Joseph day after day after day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. Joseph's character is revealed by what? Joseph's character is revealed by his refusal. He says, I refuse. I cannot do this. I cannot do this. This goes against who I am. This goes against what I believe. This goes against everything that I've been taught. I've been entrusted. I've been favored. I found prosperity by walking with the presence of God, by actually having God with me. God's been with me. How could I live apart without God? How could I do this against God? How could I do this against Potiphar? How could I dishonor Potiphar? How could I dishonor you? This is who you are. You are his wife. And this is who I am. I walk with God. It's different for me. I can't give in. I refuse to settle. I refuse to settle for the short game. I've got my eyes on the bigger prize. I've got my eyes on something bigger and better and greater. I cannot do this thing. I refuse. See, Joseph refused to fold. Can I ask you, or maybe give you the courage to think through, maybe there are things that you need to refuse. Maybe there are things that you need to refuse. Don't give up. Refuse to fold. Maybe for you, it's saying refuse to settle. Refuse to compromise on your convictions, your calling, who you are to please somebody else. Refuse to go along chasing all the pleasures. Refuse to give up on those dreams for your life. Refuse to give up or give in to the enticing nature of sex, money, power, privilege, status, stuff. Refuse to be derailed away from what God ultimately has for you that's better. Refuse and choose. Choose to be that man, that woman, marked by the presence of God. See, Joseph knew who he was, even though he had been through he had seen God be present in the pit, seen God do something in his heart through being sold as a slave, and now finds himself in this position, and he says, how could I go against God? God has carried me all this way. God has been faithful. I have to be faithful. He knew who he was, and it gave him the strength to persevere, and we see this character under pressure, this character revealed under pressure, in this refusal and this choosing to stand up to something different. And then ultimately we see Joseph's integrity. We see his integrity. Integrity is this. It's the quality of being honest, the state of being whole and undivided, having internal consistency or lack of corruption, the condition of being unified, unimpaired, in sound construction, having strong moral principles and uprightness. rightness. I remember growing up and walking to a job site with my dad and hearing them use this phrase, hearing them talk about the building of either having structural integrity or not. They were discussing how strong, how stable, how firm, how unimpaired, how true the building was. Because you see, a building with structural integrity was firm, was planted, was strong, would not easily fall. But a building that lacked structural integrity, you should be nervous walking into. It could easily crumble. Maybe the foundation was weak. And we see this structural integrity of Joseph. We see that this integrity of being honest, of being true to who you were, we see that in Joseph. See, those people with integrity are honest, are accountable, are transparent, are accessible, are trustworthy, are reliable, are responsive, are humble, are willing to do the honorable thing, the right thing, the good thing, even when it's hard. Even when it's hard. See, integrity is this quality of being true and of acting out of that truth. This is who I am. This is who God's called me to be, and I'm going to be a man, a woman of integrity. C.S. Lewis writes of integrity, and he says, integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. See, Joseph has refused her calls to come to bed with her. And one day he finds himself in a place where no one's around and no one is watching and no one would know. It says this, one day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. Potiphar's wife caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. Have you ever come home maybe from a long day's worth of work, or you're just home alone? The house is empty. Maybe this is a personal story. You've been on a diet. You've been on the grind. You're eating clean. You're eating fresh. You've already lost 5 pounds. You've made some gains. You've been so focused, and then you come home. The house is empty. It is quiet. It is alone. And on the kitchen counter, there she sits, a box of Thin Mints. Box of Thin Mints. No one will know. No one will ever find out. No one will see you eat the box of Thin Mints. What do you do? See, Joseph one day finds himself alone. He comes into the house, and there she is. No one would know. No one would ever find out. What would he do? See, but Joseph had this integrity to do the right thing even when no one was watching, the honorable thing even when it was hard. And this time, Joseph doesn't just refuse, he runs away. He literally, she grabs him by the cloak, and he tears off the cloak, and he tears out of the house, leaving his robe behind. See, there was something in Joseph that made him run. He had to get out of the place to just persevere, to just make it, even when no one was looking, even when no one would know. I'm sure he had this temptation well up in him. I'm sure he had this desire in him, but what rooted him was this character, was this integrity, was this truth, was this foundational reality that God had been with him. He could not go without God. So he ran away from the desire. He ran away from the pressure. He ran away from the temptation, but he didn't just run away to hide. He was running to something. He was running to righteousness. He was running to peace. He was running to God. He chose to run from something by choosing to run to something. I love what Paul writes in 2 Timothy 2:22. He says, "Flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with all those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart." Paul paints this picture, and we see this all the time. Run away from those things that will trip you up. Run away from those things that no one would even know when no one's watching. Run away from those evil desires, those things that will derail you from your dream, those things that will be difficult. When you find yourself in a high position under all this pressure, run away from those things and run to something. Run to righteousness, faith, love, peace, the right thing. Have this character and integrity. What about you? When it's easy, do you make that right decision? When it's hard, when it's difficult, when everyone's watching, do you have this character and integrity? What about when no one's looking? Who are you when no one is looking? Are you the person whose character and integrity perseveres and runs to what is right, honorable, or good? Or have you found yourself overwhelmed, overcome by the temptation, by the pressure? Can I tell you there's grace and courage for you wherever you land. But the story of Joseph gives us this courage to be a person with a posture of God's presence, to be a person of character that says, this is who I am at my core, and I cannot go against it. God has been with me, for me. I am with God. I want to be a person of integrity that does the right thing when it's easy, when it's hard, when no one is looking, that does the right thing regardless. Because you and I know this. Integrity is getting harder and harder to find. People of integrity, of character, of honesty, of truth, of vulnerability and transparency and trustworthiness that fight for what is good and right and honorable and gives love and value to all people is a scarce commodity on our planet. I love that quote. Integrity is a scarce commodity. Doing what's right even when it hurts. See, Joseph did the right thing when it was easy to do the right thing, when it was hard to do the right thing, when no one was looking, when no one would know. He did the right thing, and he even does the right thing when he knows probably that this is going to hurt. We read along in the story about how Potiphar's wife is standing in this empty house, and she has his cloak. Joseph's ran away and run to something, and she's embarrassed. She's frustrated. So she creates this story. She says, look, Joseph has come to try and sleep with me, to make sport of me. Look what he's done. He tried to take advantage of me. She goes to Potiphar, and she creates this scenario. And Potiphar is furious with Joseph. She lies about Joseph. She creates this story. And Potiphar approaches Joseph, and it says, this is how you treat me? It says he burned with anger. And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. See, Joseph did the right thing even when it hurt. Being a person of character, of integrity, of honesty, of honor, ultimately lands Joseph back in prison. But can I tell you, it was worth it. That's hard to say for me, because that wasn't me. But doing the right thing, being a person of integrity that fights for the good of others, that stands for the good of God, the goodness of God, that brings goodness into the world, is worth it even when it hurts. Joseph goes from the pit to Potiphar's slave to entrusted servant to pressured to persevering underneath the pressure, and then is falsely accused and thrown in a vicious, brutal Egyptian prison to be forgotten again. Was it fair? No. Was it right? No. Was this hard for Joseph? Absolutely, it was hard. But was it right? Yes. Was it right for Joseph to stand for what he knew, to have some convictions and not give in, to not compromise, to not settle, to not chase a feeling, but to stand on the foundational truth that this is who I am because this is who God is and that God is with me. I want to carry this posture with me of God's presence. Martin Luther King says this, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic nor popular, but he must take it because conscience tells him it is right? There comes a time in your life and in my life when we have to take a position because God's word, because who God is and who God says we are, says, this is right. This is true. This isn't just your truth and that truth and this truth, but this is foundational to who you are. Don't go here and there and everywhere and just chase all these things. Maybe you need to refuse. Maybe you need to lean in. Maybe you need to stand up for somebody who's being taken advantage of. You need to stand up for what is right. May you and I take this courage under pressure, persevere in what is right. Under pressure, persevere in what is right. Because here's the hope. Look at this next verse. It says, while Joseph was there in prison, he was 10 years a slave in Potiphar's house, and now he's in prison. While Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him, present, concerned towards, not forgetting Joseph, and he will not forget you. See, Joseph suffered for a crime that he didn't commit. He was falsely accused of something that he didn't actually do. And so was Jesus. We see Jesus in the last week of his life, knowing that he is being falsely accused, knowing that rumors are spreading about him that just are not true. He's just been betrayed, sold out by one of his best friends for 40 pieces of silver. And we see him in the garden, alone by himself, forgotten by his friends who he's asked to pray for him. And he is experiencing this intense pressure to just give up, to just give in. And we get a glimpse of this. Jesus is sweating like drops of blood. He is agonizing, knowing that he's going to be arrested, he's going to be beaten, he's going to be mocked, he's going to be scorned, his robe will be stripped from him, then he will ultimately be crucified. And he prays this really honest prayer. Matthew says in Matthew chapter 26, it says, going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and he prayed, Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Father, if it is possible, if there is any other way, would you take this thing away from me? I don't want to do with this. This is too hard. I feel this tension to give up and to give in. But look what he says. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Jesus prayed, God, this is hard. The pressure is unbearable. I'm not sure I can go through with this. I feel this thing in me that says, I want to give up. I want to give in underneath this pressure, underneath this coming pain. I know what's ahead of me, and I don't know if I can step back into that. I want to do the right thing, but there's something in me that is pulling me, this desire. But he says, yet not as I will, not what I want, but what you want, God. Man, and I'm so glad that was Jesus' prayer. I'm so glad Jesus did. Because of the love of Jesus, because of his grace, his power, his truth, his pain, because of his nail-scarred hands, because of the cross, he invites you and I to have the courage to not give up. Because of the cross, you and I have forgiveness of sins, forgiveness of the times that for the times that we have given in. We have done things in the dark. We have committed some sins, some hurt, some wounds, some pains. We've self-inflicted and given out on other people. And I'm so glad Jesus didn't fold under pressure, but kept his eyes fixed on something bigger. He persevered. He took the cross for our forgiveness, for our salvation, for our freedom, so that you and I could know what heaven is like, what forgiveness is like, what grace is like, what hope is like. Jesus didn't give up or give in, and invites you to the same perseverance, to the same perspective. We see it in Joseph. We ultimately see it in Jesus. Do you know that power? Do you know that presence? Do you know that courage? See, I don't know what you're up against. I don't know what pressure, what temptation you have in front of you. But let me just tell you, don't give up. Don't give in. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. May you and I be people who have this posture of God's presence, this perspective of that may look good in the moment, but I live for eternity. I live for something bigger, for something greater. 1 Timothy 6 says this, pursue righteousness, pursue godliness, pursue faith and love and endurance and gentleness. Fight the good fight of faith and take hold of the eternal life to which you were called when you made your good confession. Keep fighting. Don't give up. Don't give in to the pressure. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, who for the joy set before him endured the cross and its shame so that you and I could be set free. Don't give up.